Steelers Falcons, it's just days away. But here in the North Shore Drive podcast, we got a lot to break down. Ray Fittipaldo has been on the case every day of the week, just like he always is for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette as a Steelers beat reporter. We're going to talk about some insights that he has, especially into the offense, what's working for the run game, but also what's going wrong in the third quarter in the second half of games. We're going to break down those and get you our previews and predictions of Steelers Falcons. I'm Chris Carter, host of the North Shore Drive podcast. We are both of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Let's get into it. You are now listening to the North Shore Drive Podcast, a show on all things Pittsburgh sports from the writers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, hosted by Christopher Carter. And welcome to the North Shore Drive podcast of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm Chris Carter. He's Ray Fittipaldo, and we're here talking all things Steelers on a Friday episode. Remember, you can find the show on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and especially on YouTube. Like this video if you see it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get the daily content that comes out from Post-Gazette Sports right here. It's not just this show. It's all things Pittsburgh sports right here on this channel. Today's episode is brought to you by the Acrisure Fan Advantage with the power to project one of our Post-Gazette Steelers beat writers into your home or office. By using augmented reality, you can get an exclusive pregame breakdown from a Steelers expert standing in your living room. Get the latest insights on starting lineups, key matchups, and critical stats at post-gazette.com/Acrisure Fan Advantage. No apps or downloads, just insider access to Steelers updates at post-gazette.com/Acrisure Fan Advantage and get a real edge on this week's action. Ray, how have you been on the short week? Mondays are always tricky for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Turn around 2 road games in a row, so flying back out on Saturday. But, yeah, hey, we're used to it by now, Chris. And short week for the Steelers, too. And I don't know if you saw that injury report on Thursday. It's rather lengthy, so they're going to be nursing some guys on Friday, on Saturday, trying to get them to Sunday so they could, be somewhat healthy for that Falcons game.
Certainly, and health has been a concern all year long for the Steelers, but especially now when you're up against it with what the Steelers have been going through. Minkah Fitzpatrick, was able to get back to full, but Najee Harris still not practicing. That's a big concern. You wrote earlier in the week about how the run game has been improving for the Steelers and breaking down what's gone into it. How much I know Jaylen Warren, has been back from his injury. He's practiced in full, and that'll give them at least their number 2 option there. But how much of this is actually going to be impacted if Najee Harris can't go in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to downplay Najee Harris's impact on the offense because I think it can be significant when he's healthy. But it doesn't really seem to matter who is running the football right now.
Right.
Benny Snell had 62 yards on 12 carries. Anthony McFarland, 30 yards. Warren was out, but Warren's been very productive when he's had his shots in previous games this season. So, I think a lot of it has to do with the offensive line. I wrote about this a few weeks ago as well. They started putting their own input, into the coaches and say, hey, we like this. Najee did the same thing. Hey, I like this. And I think, it's just all coming together now. And I think they're all, on the same page or close to being on the same page. And I think you can see that in the stats. I mean, 159-yard average over the last 4 games. That is very significant considering where this running game has been since 2018.
So you don't see this as a blip. You see this as like hey, these guys are starting to figure things out, and this could be something for the makings of a better run game moving forward.
Yeah, I think so. I also think you have to take into consideration what a mobile quarterback can do, right? I mean, Kenny Pickett's had 51 yards in a game. He had more. I think he had 20 or 30 some.
I believe. I think it was like 32 or something like
32,
that.
Yeah. So, that is significant. 32 yards that you really didn't have in previous years. The quarterback mobility is a part of it, and I just think the way defenses are playing with a high cover 2. Making teams drive down the field. The running game is there. Teams are saying, okay, we're going to make you drive the ball down the field. Let's see if you can run it. Let's see if you can execute your short passing game. So, yeah, the O-line's improved. Yeah, the running games have improved. But there are elements with the quarterback. There are elements with the way defenses are playing. And if you look at the averages around the league, Chris, I think I saw a stat 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
4.5 yards per carry league wide this year is the most in NFL history. So,
Right.
it's obvious something's going on, and teams like the Steelers are taking advantage.
I think it's something that I just in my following of the NFL, we have seen things go cyclical for so long. When the offense figures something out, defenses are going to figure out something to counter it, and vice versa. When the defenses think they figured something out, offense are going to and you just see this cycle going. And for so long, we talked about the passing in the NFL, and everyone thought it was just always going to be always about the passing. That the run game was going to be non-existent. But I think what you are seeing is as defenses are focusing on, hey, you know what? We're not going to allow you to have these easy deep shots down the field. You're going to have to work to get down the field. It gives us more chances to get turnovers. But now you're starting to see teams say, okay, you do that. We're just going to run the ball where you're going to have 7 men in the box because you're putting 4 guys, 2 guys on the boundary, 2 guys deep with your looks. And I think the Steelers, they need to get in on that while this cycle of the NFL is changing right now. And maybe they are, even without Najee Harris. If Jaylen Warren can be part of that with Benny Snell, I know he was limited on Thursday with a knee, but if you get a cadre or a group of guys going, maybe that is a wheel that you get churning for this offense to make things easier for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I mean, in years past, when you had a guy like Ben Roethlisberger and defenses were playing different, it wasn't quite the disadvantage not to have the running game, right? Because you could throw for 400 yards in a game and win, or 350 yards. Now it's almost a disadvantage if you don't have a running game, just because of the way defenses are, trying to scheme it up and protect against not giving up those big plays. Which, amazingly, the Steelers were giving up big plays earlier this season. Terrell Austin said they got to button that down, and they did last week. We'll see if that can continue. So yeah, the Steelers are sort of jumping on that running train. Finally have some traction there. I think I don't think it's a coincidence. 30 points against the Bengals, even though they didn't run it great that game. I still think they had close to 100 yards, and then 24 against the Colts. Really nice job with the running game there. So your season highs 1 and 2 have come in the last 2 weeks, and I think that's a direct result of that running game being a little bit better.
I agree with you on that sentiment, but we got to get to what's going on in the third quarter and why is the offense stalling at that point, because that's been a contentious point. It was where the game fell apart against the Bengals. It almost fell apart against the Colts if it wasn't for a fourth quarter drive by Kenny Pickett in that offense. We'll talk more about that right here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Liquid Death. If you're out tailgating, you see someone crushing tall boys all day and not getting drunk, they're actually pretty sober. They're probably just getting more hydrated with Liquid Death, the ultimate mountain spring water brand that comes in a can, not in a bottle. What on earth is Liquid Death? Well, they call it Liquid Death because it's here to murder your thirst and murder plastic pollution on the planet. They donate 10% of the profits from every can sold to fight plastic pollution on the earth. And plus, it tastes great as well. When you get bottled water, sometimes that plastic residue leaves it over and you feel that taste in it and it kind of blends the water out, but not with Liquid Death. It comes straight out of the can. You just put it in a cooler, put it in your fridge. It comes out ice cold. It's fresh. And again, you're drinking out of the can. It looks like a Miller Lite, but tastes like just refreshing ice cold water. So go get yourself some Liquid Death right now at your local Target, 7-Eleven, or County Fair, or find a Liquid Death retailer near you with their store locator tool located at liquiddeath.com/shore. That's liquiddeath.com/shore. Also, you can find our other sponsor, Valley Pool and Spa. Wouldn't it be nice if the holidays were stress-free? A hot tub, a swim spa, or a sauna from Valley Pool and Spa will help you feel like it is. Relax and soak in a hot tub or a swim spa from Valley Pool and Spa before the snow flies. Refresh and rejuvenate in a Finleo sauna that is sure to melt your stress away faster than Frosty in Aruba. Save big now on all in-stock hot tubs, swim spas at valleypoolspa.com. That's valleypoolspa.com. Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast, I'm Chris Carter. He's Ray Fittipaldo. We're talking all things Steelers on the Friday episode, getting you ready for Steelers Falcons. But before we talk about this game specifically, Ray, what do you see is the problem in the second half with the Steelers? And I guess specifically the third quarter, because even last game, they scored 16 points in the first half. Great
Right.
pace. Even though Kenny Pickett misses the touchdown to George Pickens and they settle for 3, even though you'd like to get some more of the touchdowns there, you get 16 points a half, you're in a great spot. But then they come
Right.
out in the third quarter, more 3 and outs. What do you see as the biggest catalyst for those problems?
Yeah, I mean, Chris, for as much criticism that's been laid on the offense this year, if you look at the first half scoring, it's almost 11 points per game or per half in quarters 1 and quarters 2. And that's 18th in the league. And it's not all that bad. But when you look at the third quarter scoring, 1.7 points per third quarter this year. I mean, only the Broncos are worse. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's really been something that's kind of crippled them all season. And then, if you want to just look at this last game, 3rd and 1 on the opening series, Anthony McFarland gets stuffed. Either the Steelers do a poor job of blocking it up, or the Colts do a nice job, and they got a punt. Second series, George Pickens drops that ball over the middle, kind of could have just cradled it. He kind of tries to catch it like this. I don't know why, and they got a punt. So there you go. That's what happened in the Colts game. Third series is the big drive. They score the touchdown. But obviously, it's more than execution, right? I mean, when it's a pattern for 11 weeks, it's more than that. And I tallied it up in my story on Thursday. Opening series of the third quarter, 5 punts, 3 and outs, 3 field goals, 1 singular touchdown, Chris, in the third quarter this season. And that came on a 4-yard drive against the Jets after Minka intercepted that ball. And they did it on 3rd and 1. Can you imagine if they did it on 3rd and 1?
Oh, my goodness.
They would be touchdown-less if Kenny Pickett doesn't score there. So, it's everything. It's play calling. It's execution. They were just flat out bad probably for the first 6-7 weeks of the season. Now they're starting to play better. And as they start to play better as an offense, and they play better in the first half, you would expect that play to continue over into the second halves of these games. So that's really something to watch over the final 6 weeks. You see progress in the first half. In the last 2 games, they put 20 up on the Bengals, 16 on the Colts. Why can't you do it in the second half? Go out and prove that you actually are improving and becoming, a consistent, overall good offense.
I'm with you there. I want to pick your brain on this aspect of it, because this was all the rage and all the talk Tuesday right after the game. But there was the clip on Monday Night Football that everyone could kind of hear where the Colts players were saying, it's the same plays. And you heard after the Bengals game, the players talking about, or I think it was Pratt who was talking about, we recognize some of the plays there. But, when we were asking Mike Tomlin about it after the Bengals game, he was like, everybody kind of has the same sort of plays at some point. It's just about stopping them or not stopping them. And at the same time, he brought up, there were 30 points scored on the Bengals for all the same plays that they had. There was still a touchdown drive by a rookie quarterback put up on the Colts after the Steelers were calling the same play. Is that a real problem that you think is part of the issue here, or is that sort of a misnomer that I think that people are putting too much attention on?
No, I mean, I think, Mike is right in a lot of ways. I think a lot of OCs do run the same concepts. And, I think the difference is when you have a really good football team and you execute, it doesn't matter what you run. Defense can know what you're running, and, it doesn't matter. I go back to all those years, Chris, when David DeCastro, they would kind of run the double
trap with two guys.
They would pull them around the edge. Everyone knew they were going to do it. I remember one game against the Bengals. I don't know how many yards they had rushing, but they knew it was coming and they couldn't stop it. Now, for the Steelers this year, do they have that type of offense? No, they don't have that personnel. I think more importantly, they're young, they're inexperienced, they're still growing, so the execution isn't always there. But I mean, listen, if you are going to be like that, right? If you're young and learning, and you're going to run the same concepts, maybe you do sprinkle in a few more wrinkles, adjustments after halftime, right? Just to sort of make defensive coordinators think, make those players think on the field. But I'm with Mike. I understand it. Good teams are able to overcome that. And I just think at times this year the Steelers haven't been good enough on offense to be able to execute when the other team knows exactly what's coming.
We're going to talk more specifically about the matchup in a minute, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this before we sent to our next break. The Falcons have a very below average defense. They don't stop the run well. They don't stop the pass well. Is this the week when we see the Steelers offense click, and not just for like one or two drives, but like actually start to put things together and have, as close to a complete game as we've seen this season?
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're all waiting for, right?
Right.
I mean, you see it in spurts, and then it goes away. And then, Presley Harvin's out there 3 series in a row. I mean, that's the way this offense has been. So, the Falcons have struggled this year. This is still an NFL road game, though, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we're going to go watch the Steelers score 35, 38 points, but this is a very winnable game. I think if they can get to 24, 27 points, they can win this game. You shut down that run of the Falcons, put the ball in Marcus Mariota's hands. I think you got a good shot to beat them. So, I don't know if we're going to see the Steelers break out, so to speak, but I do think you could see them again, score between 24 and 30 points and have a real nice chance to win that football game.
More on that matchup and our final predictions and how this game will play out in just a minute here on the North Shore Drive podcast with Chris Carter and Ray Fittipaldo. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Yinz's in the Berg. Yinz's in the Berg is your number one place to go for all your Pittsburgh sports apparel. Go there, Yinz's in the Berg. They have 2 stores in the legendary Strip District. Go there right now. Plus, they have a growing online store. If you're out of town, you can't make it to the Strip District, you go to yinzerspgh.com and you can see their growing store that they're always getting new merch. If you're a big Steelers fan, Penguins fan, Pirates, Pitt, anything Pittsburgh, they've got it. So Yinzers, get to the Strip District, go to any of their stores, Yinz in the Berg, or go to yinzerspgh.com. Again, that's yinzerspgh.com for all your Pittsburgh sports apparel. Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast, Chris Carter, Ray Fittipaldo. It's time to give our breakdown of how this game will go. Ray, before we get our full predictions here, you brought up something that I thought was very crucial to this game. The Falcons have the number 4 rushing offense in the NFL right now. They love to hand it off to Cordell Patterson or Algier or let Marcus Mariota run it himself. This is a faster type of rushing offense. The Steelers, on the other hand, have had the 6th best rushing defense this year. They've been pretty good. First, explain to me why you think the Steelers have been better against the run this year, and then get into whether or not you think this is a good matchup for how the Steelers defend the run, despite the Falcons' strength there.
Yeah, well, I think number one, when TJ Watt was out and the secondary was banged up, teams were just throwing all over the Steelers. They didn't have to run the ball. So I think that's one reason why the rushing numbers against are down this season. But they did work on it a lot over the offseason. I think there's been more attention paid to guys staying in your gaps, right? Not getting out of your gaps, not trying to do too much. When things go bad, just do your job. And I think that has been one thing that they've done pretty darn well this year. Now, Larry Ogunjobi is on the injury report again this week. I think when he's healthy, they're a different run defense. So
I agree.
Cam Hayward's still playing well. Larry Ogunjobi, when he's healthy, he's good. Alex Highsmith is a really good run defender. And even though TJ's not known for that, I mean, just TJ's presence on the field, I think that has an impact on your run defense as well. And I think, the volume of tackles Miles Jack has made, I think overall the moves they made, when they're healthy, they work, right? They spend a lot of time over the offseason wanting to get better on run D, and when they're healthy, it's been good. Now, this is a challenge, right? Marcus Mariota is not Lamar Jackson, but he's still really good. I mean, he's still very effective. Yeah, I mean, I'm more worried about Mariota in this game than I am Patterson. I think Patterson probably hurt you more with kick returns than he does in the running game, even though he's a fast, big, powerful back or slash player, whatever you want to call him. So to me, you want to put Marcus Mariota in a position where he has to win this game with his arm. If the Steelers' run defense does well, I think they'll win this game, and I think they will do that. I think this is a big spot for the Steelers' defense, and I think they'll come through.
I think I'm on the same page with you here. I like the way the defense has been improving this year, especially against the run. Last year they finished dead last. But like you said, if Larry Ogunjobi's healthy, now granted, again, he missed practice on Thursday, might have been precautionary, because Cam Hayward didn't practice either on a coach's decision. Maybe it's a situation where they're trusting Ogunjobi to just be healthy, but it's also a short week, so you've got to take extra precautions. And I think that's something that's being taken there. But I agree with you, because one thing that you're seeing this year a lot more than last year, the linebackers are being kept clean. Devin Bush and Miles Jack. There's sometimes they deal with offensive linemen, but there's a lot more times this year where they can be the aggressors instead of at the snap of the play after 2 steps, a guard is running right at them. And a lot of that is because this defensive front, I think, has been better as a whole, and that's kind of opened things up for them. And then, like you said, you stop the run, eventually you force them to throw the ball, and they throw it on 3rd and long, which means they have to hold on to the ball more, and it gives Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, those guys more time to attack the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, they've done pretty well against running quarterbacks over the years. They probably defend Lamar Jackson better than anyone in the league, and they'll get that opportunity next week. So this is a nice little tune-up, kind of Lamar Jackson light. Let's see if you could stop Mariota, and then let's see if you can repeat that next week when the Ravens come to town.
Absolutely. Ray, give us – I always do this with Brian – give us where you think the turning point in the game is. Like, what's the factor that you think has the biggest impact on the game, and when we see that come to fruition, and give us your final score prediction.
Yeah. Steelers running game puts up 125 or more.
Ooh.
Jalen Warren back, Benny Snell back, Anthony McFarland. So kind of a 3-headed running rotation. I'm going to say Steelers 24, Falcons 21. They get another one on the road.
Ooh, that's a close one there. I'm in the similar vein as you. I'm giving the Falcons a few less points. I'm going 23-17, but I see a similar thing here. I think that the Steelers, you look at both of these defenses have given up a lot of yards to the air, but the Steelers have been better at limiting teams on the ground than the Falcons have, and I think that's the Steelers' saving grace here. They get more stuffs on the ground. Eventually, the Falcons crack, and that allows the Steelers to have a more balanced offense in the fourth quarter, which gets them a win. So we both have the Steelers beating the Falcons. Ray Fittipaldo will be there in Atlanta this weekend covering the game. It's going to be a fun one. Do check out the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com for all of our Steelers coverage leading up to and during and after that game. And then find this show, the North Shore Drive podcast, right here on our YouTube channel or on anywhere podcasts are hosted, to get our breakdown of what happened in the game. From Chris Carter and Ray Fittipaldo, have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down below in the description.